It's happened again. I've said it before, but the Ethereum ecosystem absolutely refuses to quit losing its users' money. Ready? Let's go. If Cardano and Ethereum are competing against each other in a combat sport, I think it looks like this. It's like the challenger jumps in the ring and he looks lean and strong, fast, agile, but he looks like a welterweight. But he has this look in his eyes, like he knows he's prepared so well for this bout. There's no way his competitor could possibly match the ferocity that he's going to come out of the gate with. Then the champion jumps in the ring, and the champion's huge. Looks like a light heavyweight. Looks like he's many weight classes larger than the challenger. But he's like a little bloated, and you can tell maybe he's been the champion too long. Maybe he's lost that fire. He doesn't have that fire in his eyes. He probably didn't prepare for this bout as well as the challenger. Everybody's really excited for the fight, right? What's going to happen? Is it the well-prepared challenger? Is it the aging veteran champion? Everybody's about to find out. Then the bell rings. So much excitement in the air. All of a sudden, the champion just starts uppercutting himself in the jaw over and over and over again. He can't stop punching himself in the face. And the fans are like, please make it stop. Please stop. This is horrible. This isn't even a fight. And Ethereum's in there just like, must punch self in face. Must punch self. And he won't stop punching himself until eventually he's unconscious, laying there on the canvas. I feel like that's what we're watching happen with Ethereum right now. I love reading the Ethereum ecosystem self-reporting and all this stuff because they just seem to take it for granted now that their ecosystem loves to punch itself in the face. Here we see shared stake, which apparently is the 6th biggest ETH2 staking pool. Allegedly, they're experiencing, there it is, shared stake. Allegedly, they're experiencing a rug pull right now. And this has been chalked up to a rogue developer. I've seen people mention a rogue developer. But of course, this is crypto. It's not that simple. There's not just some shady bad guy wearing a black hat out there. Apparently, we've got 2 different developers involved in the project, and they're both kind of blaming each other for this rug pull incident. Here we see a little report. Both devs, including Chimera and Kairos, doxed each other, including where each one lives and family members. They're also each blaming one another. Value involved is over 32 million USD. So if the Stakehound lost keys incident was 75 mil, and here we've got 32 mil, it looks like the Ethereum staking proof of stake experiment, albeit a very short experiment, has already, if these figures are correct, they've already lost over $100 million of user funds. This is not a lost keys incident, so it actually kind of sounds like part of this money could be coming back. We know who these people are. These aren't mysterious, shady figures that will never be uncovered. They actually know who these people are, and we've actually heard a detailed account from one of them. So this is the shared stake Medium account, and here we have an account of what happened from the perspective of Kairos, one of those 2 developers involved in all this. And he tells a pretty unsettling story about this other developer. I think that's Chimera. This other developer, Chimera, may having to make loans to him for legal fees and subletting his part of his apartment to him for $100 a night, and him not paying him back. This is all, I'm not presenting this as fact, so nobody sue me for defamation. I gleaned this article and I'm relaying my understanding of what's presented in the article. I have no idea how factual this is. But this apparently is one of the developers of the project, and he's alleging all these things about the other developer. Then we get down here to this point where he says that the other developer had broken the time lock contract, which was supposed to have locked up 4 million SGT for 2 years. So he says, it was all very suspicious. And so I front ran Chimera's attempt to revoke my shares and sold a percentage on the market, about 90,000 SGT. The rationale being that if he was about to dump 4 million SGT on the market, everything I had worked for until now would be rendered completely useless, and I had to get out with what I could. I also immediately informed Icebear, who I guess is the other developer involved in the project, so that he could do the same. And then he says the 90,000 have since been returned to the DAO via Icebear. You can imagine if you were a participant in this project on Ethereum and you hear this kind of stuff, you can imagine how unsettling this is. This is like incredibly unsettling. It's really easy here to focus on the superficial questions. Does a person who is subrenting a piece of an apartment for $100 and can't pay back a loan for legal fees for $7,500, does this sound like the kind of person you want to entrust with people reporting over $30 million, at least access to over $30 million? Does any of that make sense, right? Of course it doesn't. But the more fundamental questions have to do with why the system is creating this kind of opportunity, for people who may or may not be doing something malicious, but people who are definitely capable of creating problems this big. It really has to do with the protocol that Ethereum has designed. They decided to go the route of stake slashing. When you go the route of stake slashing, that stake can't just be sitting in a user's wallet under their protected private keys. It has to be exposed in order to be slashed in some way. It has to go somewhere else. And so in Ethereum, you've got these two choices: either have 32 ETH, right? Which right now, I think that's something like, what is that, like 64? Yeah, I mean, it's like almost 60 grand worth of Ethereum right now. You can go that road and also be technically savvy enough to run your own node. That's like one thing you could pursue. Or you can stake with somebody else, in which case you probably have to give up custody. The stake pool is going to have custody of your Ethereum, and you run the risk of them losing the private keys, like in the Stakehound incident of just a couple of days ago, or the developers getting into some kind of a fight or whatever allegedly happened here, and developers deciding to withdraw all of the tokens from what you thought was a place where they couldn't be withdrawn so soon. Lockup periods involved in Ethereum 2.0. Everything about it is suboptimal. Everything about having to give custody to the stake pool is suboptimal. Of course, you're going to have rug pulls, right? The history of DeFi is basically a history punctuated by continuous rug pulls, lost keys, right? Some of the most famous stories from even the earliest days of Bitcoin are about people losing the keys to millions of dollars. One of the most famous stories, a guy threw away a hard drive, and apparently, the lore is that he spent years combing the landfill because, there was some extraordinary amount of tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin on the hard drive. These are all things we know happen in crypto. All these things happen whenever you give up custody of your crypto. I just happen to have on hand a little bit of CCTV footage of an actual Ethereum holder trying to work through some of these issues with the Ethereum ecosystem. So here's the Ethereum holder. You'll understand why he has a cowboy hat on in a second. Here's the Ethereum holder. Here's Ethereum. Not Ethereum, but the Ethereum ecosystem. Let's put it like that. The Ethereum ecosystem is over here. The Ethereum holder is like, Ethereum, why can't I quit you? All my crypto ducats keep disappearing every time I'm around you. And Ethereum's like, Get back in the corner, plebe. I feel like I feel like I feel like that's the I feel like that's the relationship. And to be clear, I'm just talking about the ecosystem as a whole, not any particular organization and not the Ethereum organization. But the ecosystem is kind of like these poor people keep losing their tokens or their crypto of some type. And the ecosystem is sort of like, oh, sorry, you got rug pulled? That's definitely your fault somehow. And this poor cow over here is just like, why? I know there's a history of this happening in this ecosystem. Why does this keep happening? We've also talked about the role of stablecoins within crypto and the very strong possibility that we see regulation of stablecoins in the near future. Today, the Fed put out a neon sign right on the outside of the Federal Reserve building. There's a neon sign now. Consider there to be a neon sign that says, "We are going to regulate stablecoins." Just today, Fed's Rosengren, stablecoins could pose a threat to financial stability in the future. They are using the strongest possible words to let you know that they may regulate stablecoins. When they say this is blank thing is a threat to financial stability, you can consider that flags raised. We are probably going to regulate this thing. So if you are heavily involved in some DeFi project at this point in time, you need to be asking yourself, in what ways does this project interact with stablecoins? If the Federal Reserve were to come in and regulate stablecoins, how might that impact this project? And I think what you'll discover is that a lot of projects would be pretty heavily impacted if there was no way for people to escape to US dollar exposure or other fiat exposure without leaving that project, right? Or a project that looked a lot like it. If people had to go and trade back to Kraken or Binance or Coinbase in order to get US dollar exposure, you need to ask yourself, what would that do to this project, right? And you might think, oh no, people don't even care about US dollar exposure. They'll just trade back into Bitcoin, worst case scenario, or ADA, base layer currency. People really, in really tumultuous times, the US dollar is something that is kind of like a default position. It rings of safety for some reason to people. And despite the narrative that's very common for us in crypto that the US dollar is a terrible, terrible asset because of its, sort of like spontaneously inflationary nature, a lot of people in tumultuous times, they just default back to USD. So you need to be asking yourself, what happens if they regulate stablecoins? And you might think to yourself like, oh no, my project, they're on the up and up. They'll just comply with the Fed's regulations. But think about it. Your DeFi project that's probably being coded in somebody's mom's basement, what are the chances that that's the stable coin, that their chosen stable coin that they rely on is the one that survives compared to some stable coin created by a legacy financial institution? Or best case scenario, maybe one created by something of a crypto institution that's very cozy with the legacy institutions. Maybe it's like USDC through through Circle is the only one that survives. Maybe not even that. We don't know. We don't know what this regulation is going to look like. I mean, do we just end up with a JP Morgan USD coin? Is it something like that? Is that the only stable coin we have because they're the only ones who can meet the regulations? If you're involved with DeFi projects right now, you need to be thinking about what the whole possible spectrum of regulation could look like for this project that you're involved with. See ya tomorrow.